everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Brandy and I have a cape. I'm so excited, it's literally just turned up and I want to wear it for this video, and so I'm going to film this video quickly in case anyone comes home and thinks, Brandy, you look weird. So today I am wrapping up March. I'm actually wrapping it up straight away. It's like the 1st of April and I want to get it out of the way. So in March I read 11 books and I did actually have one DNF. I'm quite excited actually by the fact I have my first DNF. So we will discuss. Did I finish my prompts? Kind of, yes. One of my DNFs was for one of my prompts and I haven't decided, because it's like 60% of the way through, whether that should count. So maybe give me some punishment so I know what options I have, whether I should give myself like a half punishment, whether I should like count it up as a half thing, but I just didn't get round to reading another book. So yeah, I read 11 books. My average rating was about 3.7. I read a lot of 5-star books and I read a lot of 3-star books. There was kind of basically nothing in the middle. I think I had 1 4-star. I don't know, but we will just get in and go through the prompts. So the first prompt I had was Scared of the Hype, and for that I chose Law by Alexandra Bracken. I was scared of the hype because this was kind of Percy Jackson meets the Hunger Games, and because they were kind of both big books when I was a big reader, I suppose. I was quite excited to read them and also a bit nervous. I kind of have mixed feelings about it. I don't know, maybe the fact that it was for the prompt Scared of the Hype, that helps or doesn't help my torn feelings, but I feel like it wasn't as good as it could have been. I feel like there were some things that it didn't quite do as well, and it was quite slow. It spent a lot of time focusing on very few things, and then the things that you needed to spend time with, you didn't, and so it just kind of passed me by. I know sometimes you want all the drama to happen at once and it's like overwhelming, but like I didn't think it was overwhelming in a good way. I have heard lots of people really like this, so I was kind of disappointed that I didn't love it. I mean, it was easy enough to read, but it wasn't like I wanted to keep reading all the time. It was like, I'm gonna keep reading. I like the setting and I think the premise of this is really interesting. However, I feel like it wasn't explored as well as it could have been. I wanted to know more about the gods and the history, and I feel like we were only offered fleeting instances of them. We only got to see them in like chapters rather than across the whole thing, and I didn't think it was particularly feminist. Like, I know all books don't have to be feminist, but it had a female main character who was good at fighting, and then there were like 2 other female characters and that was it. And I don't know, they had some good discussions, but I feel like for the big discussions they had, it didn't necessarily do everything well. So I don't know, I think it was good, but I think it could have been better, and I don't know what to do with this because this is the exclusive Fairy Loot edition and I think it's really pretty, but I don't know. So I'm just quickly checking in the middle of this wrap up to say it's been just over 2 weeks since I filmed my wrap up. The video is going up today, but I was editing it and I realised I really didn't convey how much I didn't enjoy Law when I was doing this wrap up. I think I was still hopeful I was going to like it more than I did, and so I was still kind of looking for things, but as more people have finished it on the Mythtake chat and discussed it, I'm just like, yeah, I really didn't like it. The end was so disappointing. It was just generally not as good as it could have been, and so I wanted to include that kind of feeling in this video, so you had my genuine feelings. I don't know whether I'll like review my review, and I did sell it. I'm very pleased with my decision to sell it in the end because I got a lot of money for it. The next role I had was Heard Good Things About, and so for that I chose A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L Armentrout. This was the second book, or the sequel to From Blood and Ash, which I read last month. I've read a sequel straight away. I have a second one coming up. And I really enjoyed it. I rated it 5 stars and it was great. It was just so good. My main takeaway is, although I still don't think the sex scenes in this were necessary, and there were perhaps fewer, but then when they were there, they were just kept coming. Although I don't think they were necessary, I think they were well written, so I didn't mind them as much as like sex scenes that are just ew. So I don't know. maybe I like the kind of tension, maybe that helped because there was a lot of that in this. And I particularly liked the relationship in this. And I think this is why I liked it so much, because it was almost like a fake dating romance. And I like a fake dating romance. I like that it allows characters to form their own relationships and their own kind of opinions without the pressure of actually a relationship. And so I think how it was developed in this was really interesting. I like how the characters were allowed to explore the world, how we got a better kind of glimpse of the world because we are following Poppy, who everything is new to, and so that was quite nice to be introduced to it with her. I like that we kind of got a bit more of the culture and the world, and the ending was mad. I will probably pick up the third book this month if it's available, or possibly next month because it comes out at the end of the month, but it was so good and I'm so excited to read it. And the next prompt I had was to read a book not set in the UK or the US, and so for this I read Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This was a kind of Mexican mythology, is it Mayan mythology? Retelling, well, yeah, set in kind of 1920s Mexico, and it was really interesting. I liked getting to see a culture and a set of gods I didn't know a lot about because they had kind of new monsters, they had different names. I thought that was really interesting. I thought the setting was quite unusual because you always get them in kind of modern day or in fantasy, and so for it to be in a real world but in the 1920s, it was quite interesting because of like how they kind of handled characters and how they behaved towards non-white people, and so that was really interesting. I found it a bit slow. I don't know if I kind of approached it at the wrong time because I just wasn't reading a lot, but I found nothing, although there were lots of action scenes. I thought that the main action didn't happen until 15% before the end, which is fine, that's what happens, but for some reason it just kind of was like, okay, we're still going. But I really like Cassiopeia, I think that's her name, her character. I thought how it was written was really, really incredible. Like, it was just one of those books that you constantly highlight. I loved like Cassiopeia's dreams, they were so beautiful, but I didn't feel for the romance and I didn't care for it, and then when it happened I was like, okay. But I rated it probably 3.5 stars, and I would recommend. I think it was a very good book. The next prompt I had was might unhaul, and so for that I have I Am Number 4 by Pittacus Law. I basically had a shelf of books I want to read before I unhaul them, and this was on there because I've wanted to unhaul it so many times, but it's been on my shelf for so long that I was like, I feel like I should read it. And then I read it and I realised why I should have unhauled it. So this is my DNF. I was listening to the audiobook which I borrowed from the library, and I got about 60% of the way through. I mean, not even that far. I got about 10% of the way through and I was like, I can't do this, it's horrible, but I need to read this book. And I just gave up. I'll see if I can kind of insert a clip of the audiobook.
And try to shake them away. Mrs. Burton, sorry to interrupt. Your new student is here.
Oh, great, send him in, she says in a high-pitched voice of enthusiasm.
But the narrator gave each of the characters different voices, which sometimes doesn't bother me, but like, they were just so annoying and so like over the top in this, and I really hated it. And then the story itself was like bad. Although I hated the audiobook early on, I didn't care enough about the story to want to like pick it up physically, and that's why I continued for so long. But it just got to the point I was like, I'm not enjoying this. Like, there are other audiobooks I have on loan, I'm just gonna listen to those instead. And it was a typical boys action book, and I just didn't care for it. Like, the women in it were just there to be the love interest, and when I say the women, I mean the woman. There was one girl in it throughout the whole book, and she was just whiny and pretty and useless. And then Sam told me she's like a bad guy in the future anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't care. I'm gonna write a proper full-on review to put on Goodreads because I know people are gonna hate me for it, so that's cool. Actually, I don't think I included this in the rating, so my average rating for the month may be lower. The next prompt I had was for a thriller or a mystery, so for this I chose Bunny by Mona Awad. This is just weird. I rated it about 3 stars because I got through the first like 70% really quickly, and then just life got in the way, and it took me maybe 2 weeks, possibly even longer, to read the final 30%. And so by the time I finally got back into it, I was like, I'm not interested in it anymore. So I think my own reading experience didn't help with my rating, but I also just don't think dark academia books are for me. I think not enough happens, and it's so confusing, the stuff that does happen, that I don't really know how to handle it. And so I don't think it was bad, I just don't think it was for me, and that's fine. I don't really know what happened, and then I don't really know what to think about the characters, and it was just really weird. Like, there was one particular line, let me see if I can find it because it was weird. It was talking about spring. It was describing the world, because apparently, somehow, it is now spring. The air smells sweet, bloomy, like plants having sex. I feel like that explains my whole kind of experience of the book, and I don't know what to think of it. So my final prompt was for a cold setting. I had to change this, and fortunately I did listen to a audiobook in a cold setting, because otherwise I wouldn't have completed it. But for this I have chosen Magyk by Angie, which is like my favourite book of all time, so I'm not going to spend lots of time talking about it because I already have, and I have videos planned for it. But it is set around midwinter, so there's lots of snow. They get stuck in the snow at various points, and so I could count it for this, but I just love it. It makes me happy, it makes me laugh. I got the audiobook because it's finally available on Audible, and I was just really excited to listen to it again, because again, that was like a part of my kind of reading experience the first time, and so it was nice to be able to experience it again. And yes, I'm delaying reading the final book, but please read this because I need someone to cry with. Then we get on to the other half of the month, the like non-prompt reads, and it was a very bizarre reading month for me because I had like a project to do. I was doing some work for a friend and I didn't have to use my brain at all, and so I just listened to audiobooks, and I listened to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 I think about 7 audiobooks in about 3 weeks. It was a very maybe like over the whole month I read 4 audiobooks, but I listened to about 5 or 6 within the space of about 2 or 3 weeks, and it was just a very bizarre experience. And so that's why I haven't read many physical books, but I do own a lot of them physically. So yeah, I will go through the non-audiobook first, just so I can do all my audiobooks in one go, although Magyk and I Am Number 4 did get included. So the non-audiobook I have is While Paris Slept by Ruth Truett, which is a historical fiction which I was sent by the publishers. It's about 2 separate timelines. It's about one family who live in America in 1954, and then the same couple, particularly the same man, in 1944 when he works on a train line that kind of takes some people to Auschwitz. I think it's Auschwitz, or like a prison camp. And this is not my usual kind of read. I don't read historical fiction at all, almost, and so I don't want to say I was hesitant going into it, but I was quite open-minded going into it. I didn't really know what to expect, and despite it being such a harrowing book, because obviously it's not about a happy issue, it was actually really hopeful. The characters were so joyous and so real. I could feel their pain, I could feel their happiness, and I could feel how they loved each other. And I really enjoyed it. I definitely recommend it. And it was one of those books I didn't know how it was going to end. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars. Oh my god, be my cat. Be my witch's cat. No, what's that? What's that? What's this? Ow, ow, ow. Then the first audiobook I read was Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes. This book cemented Natalie Haynes as one of my favourite authors. She just writes such interesting female characters and explores feminism and women in such an interesting way. And I think she's such a great and clever and, I was going to say well-written author, but better at writing out words than I am. I think she's so interesting. This book explores a number of women from Greek history, so I have the list of them. So we have Pandora, Jocasta, Medusa, the Amazon, Clytemnestra, Eurydice, Phaedra, Medea and Penelope. And some of them were like women I didn't know about, but then there were like ones like Medusa, which I do know stuff about, and it was just so interesting to see them kind of explored both in the contemporary sense, so the time they were written with the original people that wrote them and then the people that played off that, but also how they have been explored in the modern day context. So it was exploring the Amazons in comparison to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it suddenly made me want to watch it because it is a series I have heard about and have heard how wonderful it is, but I've never read it before. And so I think it was really interesting. I loved that it was women I didn't know about as well as ones that I did, and I genuinely think I could read anything by Natalie Haynes. The fact that she then narrates these audiobooks herself is just great, because you can feel the fascination, the passion she has for these women and these projects. The next audiobook I listened to was Greenwitch, which is in the darkest... Oh no! Oh my god, I thought the cover had fallen off. Which is in the Darkest Horizon sequence by Suzanne Cooper. This is the third one, and it's the one where the two stories start to intersect, and I thought it was really interesting. It was really interesting to see these new kind of interactions, how the characters kind of reacted in new contexts and how they reacted to new characters. I don't really have a lot to say about it other than it was interesting, and I'm glad to see the story kind of begin to take on a bigger kind of thing. It was interesting to see kind of, I want to say Celtic and English folkloric traditions take place in this book. But I was a little kind of disappointed that the King Arthur thing didn't come back as much in this, but I feel like the next book is where it's going to like really take off, so I'm quite excited to listen to that. Well, I don't think I can listen. I'm quite excited to read that, and yeah, hopefully finish it soon. The next audiobook I listened to was Queen of Coin and Whispers by Helen Corcoran. This was one of my 5-star predictions. I actually rated it 4 stars, not because it was bad, but because I listened to the audiobook, I just didn't quite capture everything I needed to. This is a political low fantasy, and so I feel like paying attention to all the names was important, and I just didn't capture all of them, which is fine, but it did mean that I almost couldn't appreciate all the characters and everything that happened. But I did love the relationship in this. I think it was so carefully done, and you could tell how much like the author cared for it and how much the characters cared for each other, and it was just slow and lovely, and I loved it. I also liked both the characters. Like, both characters were their own character. They did their own thing. They were so individual, you could tell them apart, and they were both incredibly feminist in their own ways. I loved them. I loved that one of them was, they were both like girly in their own ways, but like one of them was a bit more girly because she was a princess or a queen, and I like how she was still a feminist because she was running a country and making decisions, and she was great. And I also loved that everyone wasn't homophobic. Like, they were like, it's fine to be gay, everyone's a bit gay, the only problem is if you want to be a bit gay you can't have children, and as a queen we kind of need you to have children. But I did like how it was handled, and I thought it was great, and I will probably reread this at some point. One of the audiobooks I was amazed to have read so quickly was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. I was amazed by this one because I started it on a Thursday and I think I finished it on the Sunday. Now that gives you an idea of how much time I was spending on this. It was insane. It drove me mad. Oh my god. Not the project. The book was fun. I loved the book. The book I rated 4.5 stars. But it was really interesting. I liked this kind of conclusion to the Feyre trilogy. I don't quite know where A Court of Frost and... what's it called? Starlight? And then A Court of Silver Flames. I don't quite know where they fit canonically, but I am going to be continuing them. I do think I have A Court of Frost and Starlight on hold, and no, I have it on loan, and I have A Court of Silver Flames on hold. But I really enjoyed it. I liked seeing like the politics, seeing how the characters and the courts interacted. I like seeing more of these sisters, and so I'm excited to read A Court of Silver Flames, and I feel like A Court of Frost and Starlight because they will give more of the sister interactions. And I like how the rest of the court kind of interacted. I liked the drama and the high stakes and seeing everything kind of come to a conclusion. All the things that have been built up for 1 or 2 books, it was good to see how they kind of, what's the word, climaxed in a book. And I did really enjoy it. I liked the kind of monsters and the politics and the characters. It was good. Now, the final book I'm going to talk about is definitely my favourite book of the month, and that is Sweet and Bitter Magic by Adrienne Tully. This is why I have a cloak and a black ribbon, because they do. And it was so good. This is a female romance between a dark witch and someone who can sense magic. Now, the dark witch isn't able to love anyone, and so when she does like trades and magic for other people, she gets some of their love. So like she might get their love for their husband or for their child. And the other girl is the one who can kind of sense magic and provide magic. And she desperately loves her father, and he suddenly becomes ill, and she goes to the other witch for help, and they go on a journey and female romance. And oh my god, it was so lovely. Sam got the audiobook, and then we were both like, we really want to buy it because it was such a good book. It's just one of those ones you want to own. And because we both read it, we could discuss it together, and so that was really nice. The story was really interesting, and I liked how it was handled, and I liked how the relationship was kind of introduced and how it kind of had a purpose in the story. One thing I don't like about romances in books is when they're just there because you feel like you need to have a romance, but this, it actually did something for the book, and so I think that was really cleverly done, and how it was just handled was lovely. And then the writing was just so beautiful. There is a particular scene where, because this witch can't love anything, she can't kind of see colours and stuff, and so the other one is just describing the world, and it just made my heart kind of soar, and I loved it so much. And it's one of those books you just want to highlight, and I loved it. I'd obviously rate it 5 stars and would recommend you read it. It was so good. And also, if you like an enemies to lovers, this. So these are most of the books I read in March. I enjoyed a lot of them. I loved a few of them. They were incredible. One of them I will be getting rid of quickly. But yeah, if you have read any of these or you would like to, please let me know down in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you in another video. Bye!